In 2025, you will be tested. We will all be tested. The constellations of this coming year are gearing up to let some realize and manifest their dreams in ways never seen before, while many others will falter and will fall into the pitfalls of broken dreams and shattered imaginations. The constellations, astrological constellations of this year are so special that they warrant a conscious effort to understand and prepare for what's coming. And that's what we're going to do in this video. Hi folks, Happy New Year. It's 2025 and it's that time of year when we're looking ahead and planning and looking to understand what's coming up, have a sense of what's coming up, to prepare, to adjust our plans maybe. It's the perfect time to look into the astrology of the year. Now, we already did this yesterday in a video where we looked at the global events and at the markets, the crypto markets, global conflicts and all of that on the world level. And I'm going to link that video if you haven't seen it before. But today we're looking at the personal level. We're looking at what it means, what the constellations that are coming, and specifically one that is very, very important and, things that are constellated around it, Saturn-Neptune and what's constellated around it, how that affects you personally and how each one of us personally can prepare to make the best of what's coming. Now, if you watch this channel before, I don't usually do the type of sun sign horoscope astrology where it's like, if you're a Cancer, then this, if you're a Leo, then this, and so on. Simply because it's an oversimplification. And it's because of that type of oversimplification, frankly, that astrology has a bad rep. And I don't want to be contributing to that. But nonetheless, it is possible, and we are going to look at some very concrete guidance for each and every person, depending on where certain constellations fall in your chart. So it gets more precise than just saying, okay, if you're this ascendant, if you're that descendant, and so on. And you'll be able to figure that out for yourself. You'll see when we get there. So let's get into it. The main constellation of this year is a Saturn-Neptune conjunction, right? So there's a couple of other things you may have heard. I'm sure you have. There is 3 major planets going into new signs, which brings a lot of big changes. 2 of those, the other one is Uranus going into Gemini. 2 of those are Saturn and Neptune going into the sign of Aries. So when we look at the charts of the year, we can see this constellation, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, coming into place with first Neptune. Neptune is the first to go into the sign of Aries and in April. And then shortly after, you've got Saturn following suit, and it's around when? It's in May, end of May. And then after this, once they're both together in there, you basically have them stay in a conjunction. I mean, the conjunction is already active before, right? Because this is a wide conjunction already. We're kind of sort of going into this already in the beginning of the year. And then it just gets perfect in that sign. And they stand together until September. And then from September, Saturn starts to move away. You see this? So Saturn starts to move out and back. And then after a while, Neptune starts to move retrograde as well. And they start to separate a little bit. But even after they separate, they're still together. And very interestingly and importantly, once they are back in Pisces, they get this trine, it comes a trine here from Jupiter. Okay, so Jupiter hits Neptune and hits Saturn and kind of elevates everything about this constellation again, right? And you can see there's actually a super beautiful grand trine here building up where the sun is just about to go into that towards the end of the year, right? So this is like a kind of a magical realization constellation for everything to do with that Saturn-Neptune. This is important. This is super important. Why? Because basically we are starting with this year, we're starting with the Saturn-Neptune challenge, right? And it's a challenge. It's a major challenge. I'm going to tell you how, right? It's a major challenge. And that challenge or that test will then towards the end of the year elevation, right? In this incredible elevation. However, only for those who have mastered the test, right? So this is the signature of this year. Now, what is the test about? We have to understand Saturn-Neptune for that, right? We have to understand what Saturn-Neptune is about. So Saturn is the reality principle, right? Is the reality principle, is the reality check, the harsh confrontation with reality, right? With the harsh realities of life, right? And Saturn is the time lord as well, right? It's like you can't escape. Nobody can ever escape time, right? You can't outrun Father Time. Time is Saturn that just comes and brings age and decay and just anything that ossifies and becomes concrete, right? So it's necessary, of course, but difficult. Nobody likes to deal with getting older, with death, with becoming solid, too solid, stuck, ossified, and so on, all of that, right? And Neptune is what? Neptune is the principle of dreams, the principle of dreams, fantasies, spiritual aspirations. In the highest form and sense, Neptune is the crown chakra, right? It's like the connection to the beyond, the above. But in most people, obviously, we don't, we're looking at different realization levels. For most people, the Neptune principle is not the cosmic consciousness, but rather it's just kind of glimpses of fantasies here and there, right? Unless you are highly developed spiritually, that principle mostly shows itself as glimpses of fantastic ideas. It could be, it could be video games or escape into drugs and any type of fantastic ideas that you can have in life, right? That's Neptune. Now, Saturn meeting Neptune is the reality check that comes to check the dreams and fantasies and the spiritual aspirations of each and every one of us. For everybody, globally, that's going to be the case. Your dreams, your aspirations, your spiritual openness is going to get tested in 2025. It's going to get tested, right? So, and in this test, what happens? If you succeed in this test, as you just saw before, you are going to get a major boost towards the end of the year with your aspirations, because I showed you that Jupiter comes into the trine, that's like a super beautiful constellations to elevate everything. If you fail in this test, then you're going to have to experience things dissolve and crumble in your life in 25, right? It sounds generic, but it's not. It's very, very specific for this year. This is something that's going to happen this year, much more so than any other year that you remember, right? Because last time Saturn-Neptune was in a conjunction was in 1989. You may remember that. A lot of things crumbled at that time. The Berlin Wall fell, and a lot of borders and started to crumble everywhere, which is a hallmark of Saturn-Neptune. Now, what is the archetypal vibe? Basically, the energy that we have to prepare for. The energy is that we have to bring discipline into the spiritual. Discipline into the spiritual, right? So any spiritual practices, any dreams and imaginations that you have, anything that you have where you are in the realm of imagination. This can be fantasies. This can be, thoughts that you are, like fantastic thoughts that you have that are coming, good or positive or negative, right? Positive could be like your dreams, the things you want to realize. Negative could be maybe obsessive fantasies, right? Obsessive fantasies or self-defeating imaginations that you have, right? All of that realm of the astral realm of the imaginations, which is also ruled by Moon, obviously, right? But still, Neptune is the higher channel for that, right? Is the higher channel. All of those realms of fantasies, they need to get disciplined in this year. You need to discipline them. So, in the best case, this means is the image of this, like the monk who has spiritual discipline, right? The monk who with high spiritual discipline. right? Or the whatever you want to, from different traditions, the spiritual practitioner, like the Zen practitioner. Imagine like this Zen practitioner with extreme discipline, right? In their spiritual practice. This is the highest form of realization. Like being ascetic, focusing on the essential, focusing on the essential. This is the highest form. And it leads to concrete manifestation in this year. And the lower form of this, the lower form is any type of escaping from reality. Because if you cannot structure the fantasies, the imaginations, then you can, because the realities, the harsh realities are too strong for you or too hard for you, you can escape instead, right? That's why Neptune, Saturn is often connected with, escapism, like escaping into drugs, escaping into fantasies that are unreal, just, playing video games forever without any purpose, right? Without any goal or whatever, right? Or anything like that, like any type of fantasy sabotaging reality. So now let's look at, now this is the general image that we have. Now, what does it mean for everybody? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for you? You're going to ask yourself, what does it mean for me? What am I supposed to do, right? Now, this depends on where this constellation falls in your chart. If this is what it depends on. So I'm not going to say if you're Cancer, then this. If you're a Virgo, then this. Because that's not precise enough. It depends on the house systems. It depends on where it falls in your house. Let me show in your chart, right? Let me show you as an example. So, for instance, if you are Elon Musk, okay? If you're Elon Musk, where is this going to fall? You're going to have this constellation. It will fall in your, you can see here, in your 9th house. You see here? Here's the Saturn-Neptune. Here's the Saturn-Neptune. It's in his 9th house. 9th house. So 9th house is about what? Is about your ideas of the world, your worldview, right? So Elon Musk this year is going to have a massive test around his worldview. Whether his worldview is fantastic or dreaming too much, or if there's reality, he's going to get a reality check for his worldview. And only if he passes that test, he can actually unlock like the next level of manifesting his dreams, right? So, and you can see probably there's already an early section of that, or early kind of resonance or rhythm, with that, or rhyme, or early rhyme with this coming challenge, where he has now gotten into a debate with the MAGA movement around immigration and other things, and all people are saying like, what is actually your motivations? And there's a lot. He's already starting to get into that zone where he needs to articulate much, much better what his dreams are, what his visions are, his worldview, and so on, and how it all fits together. There's going to be massive tests for that. Now, that's how you do it. You look in your chart and you see where the first degree of Aries falls in your chart. And then we're going to go house by house, where it falls in your chart and what it means for you, okay? So you can, if you have access to your chart, you just go and look, what is the first degree of Aries? 0 and 1, 2, Aries. And in which house does that fall, right? Is that the first house, second house, third house, and so on? And then you know which of the following will apply to you, okay? So let's go through it. First house. If Saturn-Neptune falls in your first house, you are going to deal this year, you're going to deal with having to question your self-image very, very massively. First house means like it all falls on you. It like you cannot escape. This whole thing falls on you. Like you have to deal with this, right? There's no way to go around it. And you're going to have to reality check your self-image. What's your identity? How you're presenting yourself? How are you seen by others, right? Are you going to feel vulnerable about this? Are you isolated maybe because you have to redo and reinvent your self-image, right? Your self-image is going to be your major vulnerability. At the same time, you're going to have a lot of confusion around it, right? How am I who am I? What am I really, how am I seen by others, right? Also, It could be health, because the first house is yourself, your body as well, right? So it could be lack, for whatever reasons in life, you may have to go through a phase where there is less vitality, less energy, right? Less physical energy. And physical hardships that are showing themselves on the body, right? Even conditions that are not really understood, like weird conditions, bizarre or, kind of mysterious conditions that could affect the body. It only needs to manifest down on the physical level when you are not solving the issues already on the spirit level, right? Then typically things have to manifest down, right? So again, you're going to have to deal with scrutiny and your own self-scrutiny, understanding yourself better, and you will have to reinvent yourself throughout this phase. And it's going to be really important to not escape in any direction, any fantastic direction, any self-delusions that you have about who you are will have to be checked. Any false stories that you made about who you are going to be checked. They're going to be exposed, right? Saturn-Neptune means exposing the untruth, right? And as a result, you should drop any false masks that you have had, that you thought you need to wear in this year, and instead establish a really kind of solid, really solid presence, right? Really solid presence. So the spiritual, the Saturn-Neptune, which is the discipline of spirit, needs to show itself in your appearance. You need to literally look different after this transit. If it falls in your first house, after this transit, you need to look different. You need to look somebody who has shed their masks or shed their appearances that don't serve them anymore, and developed a kind of a more stern, discipline, even in their demeanor, even in how they look, right? So this is the calling, or the requirement, the necessity, the requirement of the Saturn-Neptune if it falls into your first house, right? If it falls into your first house. If it falls into your second house. Second house, what's the second house? Second house is about wealth and values, right? Wealth and values. So a lot of people always assume everything second house is going to be automatically, money, just money. Obviously, money is a case, right? Is important. It is second house, but it's not just money. It's basically worth, value, resources. All of this is second house, right? So when we have the Saturn-Neptune conjunction falling into your second house, you're going to have to go through a reality check on all of your dreams and aspirations regarding your wealth, your worth, your values, what you have, right? What makes you you because you have it, right? And there will be reality checks, and there will be tests, a lot of tests around it. So a couple of typical, test situations are that you have some deals that are, too good to be true. You may be offered deals that are deceptive, right? Or you may have made investments yourself that are deceptive, that are not, where there's no solid foundation. You may have to take accountability, karmic accountability, right? For your belongings. You may have to take, basically, you may have to reality check whether your belongings, your investments, your values, whether they are all still up for the task, up for whether they're representative of who you are, right? It may turn out, basically check out you should really check, start with the financial, check your financial assets, because very typically you're going to find some financial assets that are foul, something very foul in your financial assets in this time, right? Which if you don't address that, it's going to be very serious, going to have serious consequences for you. You're going to lose a lot if you don't address that, with the Saturn-Neptune falling in your two, right? In your second. If you address it, if you actually see that, no, look, all of my investments, all of my holdings are very much aligned with who I am supposed to be, right? Maybe I shed some of them. I need to shed some of them, right? Everything is aligned with who I am supposed to be. Then you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine, right? You're going to have to develop a lot of discipline in aligning your wealth with your values, right? If your wealth and your values were not aligned before, maybe because you invested in things that you don't believe in, right? You invested in something but you don't believe in, but you thought it doesn't matter, I can make money. You're going to get the reality check in 2025. Saturn's going to come with Neptune. They're going to say like, no, right? Like, this is not going to fly, right? This is going to dissolve. This is going to dissolve. This is going to take you down. Like, you're not going to be able to get away with it anymore in 2025, right? So make sure that there could be all types. Otherwise, there's always the negative kind of realization forms, that escapism into always more and more, the illusion of I need more and more, or the illusion of lying to yourself about various assets or about various values that you hold, right? And all of those should be overcome in turn for an ability to have complete serenity of conscience with your values being aligned with your material world, right? Your material world should be completely aligned with your values. And you need discipline for that, spiritual discipline, right? This is what you have to do. This is your test if this constellation falls in your second house. Now, what happens if it falls in your third house? Third house, Saturn-Neptune falls in your third house. Now, you're going to have to deal with reality checks on the level of communications, siblings, right? The mind, that's the third house. So Saturn-Neptune falls in your third house. You may have to, you may be, there's lots of different manifestation forms, but you have to go through the reality check. You have to see what's going on in your mind and in your communications, in that mental sphere, also in your context, with siblings, with your environment, that is false, right? That needs to be debunked. That needs to be exposed. It needs to come to the light. It needs to come to the fore, right? So you might get flooded with fake news, and the fake news will mislead you this year. Like this may be your test. Your test may be Saturn-Neptune falls in your third house. Your test may be that the fake news is gonna just flood you, right? And you don't know what to do, right? And maybe mislead you in ways that could be very detrimental for you, right? Like deceptive communications, lies. Look out for lies, right? Deceptive communication. Maybe you yourself have the tendency to use deceptive communications, right? Maybe that's a tendency that you still have in yourself that you have not yet overcome. If so, this year you will get the receipts for that. You will get the result. You will get karmic consequences for that. You will not get away with it anymore. You will not get away if you have deceptive communications yourself, a fog of miscommunications around yourself, right? This will not be tolerated any longer this year, right? By the Time Lord, by Saturn, which is coming to do that reality check. So now, what can it lead to if you clean this up, if you really clear this up, right? So if you clear this up, how do you clear it up? Well, spiritual discipline. In each and every case, it's about spiritual discipline, right? Spiritual discipline, in this case, Saturn-Neptune, apply to your mind, right? Your mind. You need to sit down and journal and do journaling and do methods, apply methods to bring order into your mind in this year. Bring order into your mind, right? Because that's the only thing that can allow you to pass this test. Pass this test, right? Then you will not have to deal with, contracts and agreements that are misleading, information that is given to you that is misleading, that has bad consequences, and so on and so forth, right? And karmic remember, everything that happens with Saturn Neptune is karmic. It's not just something, but it's like a big karmic issue that happens, right? So everything that happens this year in this test is going to connect to multiple lifetimes of karma for you, right? So, and then you realize this well, what happens? You realize this well, and you become a monk, a spiritual ascetic, a master of the mind, right? Your mind will become clear, right? You will become clear. You will create order, structure, a structure which is inspired at the same time in your mind, right? And in your communications. right? And with your siblings. With your siblings. This is obviously the other form of how it can show itself. Everything that I just said before, you may have to experience this with your siblings, right? You may have to clear up karma with the siblings. Now, the similar fourth house, if it's the fourth house, Saturn-Neptune falls in your fourth house, you will definitely have family karma, right? Baggage, karmic baggage with the family. And family, or, the house, the roots, could be your house. Could be your house is just a constant challenge, right? The house is a constant challenge. Saturn and Neptune there in a conjunction, right? And in Aries, add this too. So sudden also. There's going to be sudden leaks, right? Sudden leaks breaking out in your house. Like, how do I manage this? This is unmanageable. There's so much weight, on that. Or maybe you have so much responsibilities, karmic responsibilities in your house, right? With your family. Maybe you have to take care of elderly parents. Maybe you have to take care of lots of people who need your care suddenly, or right? Suddenly is the Aries aspect as well, right? So, and then what? In the fourth house is in your inner voice, is your depth, your inner depth, right? You may have to work up guilt, inner shame and guilt, false stories that you have been telling yourself about your childhood, right? Which are lingering there, and they have been lingering there for decades, years maybe, right? In this year, they will come to the fore. You will have to face them. You will have to make them. Well, I'm saying you will have to. Obviously, some people will not. They will escape. They will do the escapism, right? They will say, oh, no, I'm going to go into just make myself a fantasy world about how it was when I was a child and who my parents were and so on. Just go into a fantasy world and not deal with this, la, 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 like this, right? So this is also possible. But then if you do that, you fail the test. You fail the test, and then you see things crumble during the Saturn-Neptune year, right? So what? But if you manage it, if you go through it, right? If you resolve like diligently through spiritual discipline, like work on giving back, work on resolving the karma with the parents, work on resolving the karma with your past, work on resolving the karma with your roots, right? Gradually, through gradual steps, through spiritual discipline. That's what Saturn-Neptune is, right? Through spiritual discipline. Then you're going to have a great liberation this year, because you will be able to pay off your karmic debt, your family karma. You will be able to maybe heal the family karma, right, this year in this massive kind of shift that's coming, right, towards the end of the year with then Jupiter going there. You might be able to heal the family karma beyond yourself, even for other generations too, right? Become a pillar of strength for your family, right? Through spiritual discipline. Everything this year you only achieve through spiritual discipline. If it goes in your fifth house, Saturn, Neptune in your fifth house. Saturn, Neptune in your fifth house, it's going to be about what? Fifth house is romances, creative games, speculations, right? So if you have any type of in the field of playful engagements, if there are any illusions around that field, right? That any falsities around that field, they will have to be tested, right? And it could be that you're talking about, well, children, obviously. Children are also a fifth house, right? It could be children. What I just said with parents in the fourth house, all of that, transpose that to children. Karma with the children. Maybe you have to sacrifice yourself for your children. Maybe you have to make great sacrifices for your children, right? Maybe you are, again, there's gambling is involved in it, play in speculative investment. Maybe there are untruths, falsities, falsehoods, right, in how you engage with your speculations. Maybe there are in romance. In romance, you may have to find disillusionments, falling for illusions in romance. Speculative deals that are false. People might offer you speculative deals that are deceptive. Rug pull. It's major possibilities falling for a rug pull, right? Somebody comes and says, here, you come here and invest, we're all going to get rich and so on. And then they run off with the money after you put your money and you're the loser, right? So these are all possibilities of Saturn-Neptune in the fifth, right? If there are in your, how you're seeing, if how you're engaging with your creativity, your own creativity, right? And your ego, how you're presenting your ego and your creativity, right? If in that there are still falsehoods, if there are still falsehoods, right? If there are still, let's say, unclear, if there's still selfishness, falsehood and selfishness. Falsehood also means selfishness in this case, right? Like selfishness as in like, you're doing things out of very selfish reasons, but you're talking to others as if you're not, right? As if you're in it for the romance, as if you're in it for with the children, maybe, out of love for the children, but maybe there's some selfishness in how you're behaving with them. If so, then Saturn is going to come and say, okay, you're going to have all of these negative type of realization forms until you work on ego, right? Fifth house is also your ego, your creativity and your ego, right? So spiritual discipline in managing your ego and spiritual discipline in having a very disciplined creative output, like being really disciplined with your creativity, being really disciplined with how you give love to your kids, right? Not one time more, one time less. Not, just however your whims are, but just discipline. Discipline is the name of the game, is the time of the year, right? Discipline. You need to bring discipline into that. And discipline with your investments too. Discipline with checking your investments, and truthfulness as well, right? Debunking the falsities, right? Being truthful with yourself and with your investments. All of that is fifth house, right? To bring mastery, become spiritual discipline in creativity, right? Creative mastery is the highest form of this. The sixth house. Sixth house is about health, right? Is about health, but also is about giving, communal giving, everyday life, your life on a day-to-day basis. Saturn, Neptune conjuncting in your sixth house. In the worst case, there could be ailments, mysterious ailments, health issues, mysterious health issues, right? Karmic, mysterious health issues that we don't know. You can go, the doctors cannot tell you what's the matter. You go and nobody can tell you what's happening, right? It could be just simply stress or burnout as well from work, right? But with the mysterious component, Neptune is there too. So, it's not really clear. Like some people tell you it's this, some people tell you it's that. Could be even like, hypochondriac. How do you call this? When you're imagining, the word that I'm looking for. When you're imagining the conditions that you don't actually have, but they're actually psychosomatically, expressing themselves because you're so obsessed with the ideal or the fantasy or the fear of that condition, right? Now, what else? It could be workplace, obviously. Sixth house is work. So betrayal and deception in your workplace, right? You may have to face betrayal and deception in the coworkers. The coworkers are suddenly, plotting against you or, doing some type of really, some tricks, playing some tricks on you, right? So all of that field of health, service, workplace can be a testing ground, is going to be a testing ground this year for how truthful you are and for how much you have already brought a spiritual discipline into your everyday life. Sixth house is everyday life, right? So the highest realization is going to be to have an everyday practice which has that element of the sacred in it, right? So the sacred service, sacred daily practice, right? Discipline, really discipline. The more that comes into place and the more that it becomes true, right? The more you can unlock the higher potentials of this aspect. Instead of having to suffer from the negative sides of this, you'll be able to unlock the highest potentials, right? Become a servant of the sacred, right? Who's able to manifest in the daily practice, right? Really manifest things in the daily practice. That's the highest form, right, of realization. Now, the 7th house, if it falls in your 7th house, Saturn-Neptune falls in your 7th house. So 7th house obviously is the partnership, right? Partnership. So we would expect, and we would be right to expect, profound karmic lessons in our partnerships, right? Partnership, make no mistake, partnership is not just your significant other. Partner is also any business partner, right? Astrologically speaking, even enemies, right? Anybody who's facing you as a one-to-one, right? One-on-one relation, one-on-one karmic relation falls in the 7th house, right? So these partnerships, mostly it's going to be your significant other, right? But could be also these other business partner, could also be, somebody who used to be a partner now becomes an enemy, right? They're still going to be on that one-on-one level. In those relationships, we should expect shattering of illusions. We should expect karmic lessons, right? We should expect, again, the necessity to become truthful, betrayal, deception, secret agendas, right? From the business partner, maybe. But obviously, I'm saying these as the negative realization forms. They're not necessary for everybody. If you are already quite developed, you will not have to go through the negative realization forms, right? If you are quite developed, you can avert the negative realization forms. I'm always saying the negative ones first and then the positive ones. Maybe I'm not emphasizing enough the positive ones. You can avert the negative forms if you work on the task of the transit. Then you unlock right away the positive, right? Then you unlock right away the higher level. So the higher level in this placement is to have extreme spiritual discipline, right? Emotional discipline with how to deal with partners. You're going to become really disciplined in how to deal with partners. You're going to develop an extremely high level of wisdom for partnerships, right? In-house, through service, through unconditional love, right? For your partner, not for anybody, right? For your significant other, for your partner, obviously, right? Not for business partners, it's going to be reliable, trustworthy, dependable, responsible relation that you can have with them, right? Which is also discipline, Saturn, right? With Neptune is like service, right? Discipline, service, like being a reliable but inspired partner, right? And even for your enemy, if you have enemies that you're experiencing this karmic relationship with, it's going to be being, spiritual discipline is going to mean being just and fair even with your enemy. This is an important trait to learn. It's an important, highly developed trait to learn, right? It doesn't mean to, not stand up to where you have to stand up, but still you have to have justice. You have to do that with justice, right? Otherwise, you get tainted too. Even if the other side is not, you get tainted if you don't keep your justice, right? And you can execute justice with justice, right? So it's not to say you cannot stand up for yourself, but you have to do that with the right spirit, right? To avoid the ego coming into things, right? To avoid ego, and then in this case, in 25, it's always going to lead to deception, dissolution, crumbling, and so on, right? As we said before. Now, what else? 8th house. If it falls in your 8th house, if the Saturn-Neptune conjunction falls in your 8th house. So here, 8th house is very interesting. It's like such a complicated house, right? It's like, they called this the house of sex, death, and transformation, magic, transgressions, all of these things. Like, why is there so much stuff packed in it? Because the 8th house is a transitional place, right? It's like our engagements with others, right? With others, but where we're transforming with others. It's not just our relationship to others, like 7. It's where we're doing things with others that are transformative. It's like the catalyst house, right? 8th house. So all of that is going to have to go through this test, the test for clarity and truthfulness. So this could mean shared resources. Obviously, what falls under shared resources, 8th house, is taxes, loans, bank engagements. If you have any loans, if you have any taxes to pay, if you have any any contracts with others, right? If you have any service providers or clients or others that are that now have a contract with you where they have shared resources with you, right? So partners that have shared resources. Let's put it this way: their service provider, their sixth house, right? So they have become more than that. They have already some shared resources with you. Then they will fall into the eighth house. Anybody who has some shared resources with you, right? Those shared resources, they can become very problematic, right? They become problematic if there is not sufficient discipline and truthfulness, right? So you can get into trouble with the state if there's any issues with taxes, right? You can get into trouble with any business partners that have some claims on you, right? Whichever claims that they have is not going to be a good time for legal proceedings in any of these questions, right? At all. Like financial disruptions, legal failures and entanglements in power dynamics are not going to be good for you. They're not going to go well for you if you don't deploy and develop and cultivate spiritual discipline. I'm saying again, spiritual discipline. For every one of these houses is the same. The spiritual discipline that you need to cultivate, in this case, because the eighth house is about shared resource, about transformations too, is a spiritual discipline of transformative practices. Transformative practices, right? Also, eighth house is interesting. Eighth house is also can be actually magic, right? So magic, eighth house, and 12th house, right, are important for this. It can be magic in terms of if you are engaged in any type of spiritual battles, right? If there are any spiritual enemies, not on the mental, not on the physical plane, but on the astral planes, right? That can be an issue, right, for the eighth house. That can be an issue too. So all of these areas, again, they're going to benefit from discipline, spiritual discipline, right? A very disciplined approach, ascetic approach, right? To your practice and to how you deal with resources and to bring truthfulness into all of that, right? Like breaking and overcoming illusions and falsehoods in any of those areas, and instead becoming a very disciplined practitioner, right, of truth in your spiritual practice and in your practice of resources with others, right? In your dealings with resources for others. And you can become, if you manage this well, you can become a spiritual master in terms of dealing with others, right? So the spiritual mastery that can be unlocked is always different for each one of the houses, right? For each one of the houses. If we're in the ninth house, we are talking about higher truths, right? The whole battlefield is going to be around your beliefs. It's going to be around your knowledge systems and your truth systems, your belief systems. Your belief systems are going to have to go this check of where is the truth, where are the lies, is this truthful, where did you lie to yourself, where did you lie about God, where did you lie about the universe, where did you lie about the world, right, about your worldview, where's maybe falsehoods in your worldview, and this is going to be the battlefield, right? This is going to be the battlefield, and so you're going to say, okay, what does that mean? Like, is that okay? Is it just some philosophical issue? Am I just going to have to, sit there and no? The ninth house is also obviously to do with with the large plans and the large visions, and the ninth house is far journeys, large plans, large visions, right? Everything that is global, cosmopolitan and global. So this, if it has to manifest down on the physical level, if there's falsehoods in your worldviews that you haven't, where you're cultivating still the lie or the fantasy that is false, right? It can manifest down to having issues, being deceived or having deception, having karmic issues on a global scale, right? With foreign partners, maybe with travel, with foreign travel. Foreign travel can be karmically difficult, right? Can have huge karmic hardships and difficulties and repercussions, right? So or your visions. Your visions may have to falter and crash and not be able to stand up to the test of reality, the test of truth that is coming in this year with the constellation that is coming, right? So all of these, basically all of the house placements, again, go through that same thing. And when it's unlocked on the highest plane, if you manage to cleanse your worldviews in the ninth house, you're going to be able to manifest a great spiritual vision of the world, of the cosmos, and you're going to be able to bring that into your life and into your work, right? The 10th house. 10th house, obviously we're dealing with career, right? So your career. If Saturn-Neptune conjunction falls into your 10th house, we're going to have a massive reality check in your career. Are you, the falsehoods, are they there? Are you working in what you're supposed to be working, right? Simply put. Is that your real soul path? Is that your real mission, right? Or are you lying to yourself? Are you lying to the public maybe? Are you lying to everybody at work maybe about who you are, right? If so, there's going to be public scrutiny. If so, there could be scandals, public scandals. If so, there could be scandals at work, right? If so, there could be tests of your integrity and your authority at work, right? To test and to see if you are truthful, if you are on the true path. Because again, remember this, what I'm saying. Saturn, Neptune, when they come together, means that falsehoods will no longer be tolerated. This is the reality check that comes to check and rein in falsehoods in every domain, right? In every domain, or misleading fantasies. So have you been lying at work? Have you been lying on your CV? Have you been lying, about your position? Have you been lying about your background? Have you been lying to get a deal done at work or whatever? This, is all stuff that it very well this year, it could be the time when it comes out, right? When it comes out and you can't anymore keep it you can't keep it hidden anymore, right? But then positively, right? If you are actually cleansed, and if you have the spiritual discipline to align your direction and your career, right, with your calling, that needs discipline, that needs spiritual discipline, right? That needs aligning. Basically, your task is going to be aligning your purpose, right, with your path, your purpose with your path, right? If you have done that, and that's going to require all of these things that I'm saying, they all require practices like meditation, introspection, group work, astrology, reading your chart, understanding who you are, all of these things, right? They all require this. So if that's the case in this situation, you are going to become a visionary leader, right? You can become a real visionary leader, somebody who leads through humility and service because they're totally in line with their purpose and they become this great authority, right? This is the higher realization of the Saturn-Neptune in the 10th house. Now, in the 11th house, we're talking about the house of associations, friends, and collectives, collective endeavors, right? So here, we have the issue of friendships and group dynamics. If you're part of a group, if you have a circle of friends, if you're part of any association, right, you will have to go through these questions: illusions, betrayal, deception in the social circles. Who is true? Who is not? Am I true? Are they true? Who's playing a game? Who's wearing a mask, right? All of this is going to come to the fore, very big time in this year. Which hopes and ideals are we actually following in this group, right? In our friendship circle, in this group. All of these things are going to come to the fore. There's going to be issues around it. There's going to be maybe a longing for something else. There's going to be maybe maybe an event that just shows you that, wait a moment, this group of friends that I'm part of, they actually have, their ideals are not what I thought they were. They're completely different. Completely different from my ideals or from what I think I should be following in my, all of this estrangement, maybe also longing for a different type of groups of friends. All of these things are very, very realistic, very, very expected types of manifestation until such time that you have brought spiritual discipline into your way of dealing with others, right? With friends, with your circle. Maybe being truthful in your circle of friends. Maybe having a a practice of service and empathy and humility, right, with your friends. Openness, practicing openness, right, but in a disciplined way, in a structured way. It's always about structure. It's always about structuring the empathy. Structuring Saturn, empathy, Neptune, right? So if you do that, if you can do that, and if you can get rid of the falsehoods that may be there, then this can be, a time where you really manifest a powerful spiritual group of friends, right? A structured, maybe a community or a association that becomes very, very solid and structured. This is the high form, right? This is the high form of the realization. Now, the 12th house. The 12th house is where the circle ends. So Saturn, Neptune in your 12th house. This is maybe the hardest position of all. Maybe the hardest thing to deal with, right? But potentially very rewarding as well, because the 12th house is so hard to understand for us. It's so hard, especially Saturn there. Saturn in the 12th house is basically a time of karmic reckoning, right? It's kind of the end of the circle, now everything has to be worked off that's not yet worked off. Past life karma is going to come out that you don't even know what this is. If you don't have the awareness, you won't even understand what this is. There's going to be karma in your life popping up, and you're like, this has nothing to do with me. I didn't do this. I didn't do anything to deserve this, but it could be past lives that did this, right? That's a time when past life karma is going to come for a purge, right? For a purge. And it's going to be hard to, basically, this is going to be a time when even the ethereal, the unreal, the otherworldly, right? That's the 12th house. Everything which is about the otherworldly is going to be so hard to deal with, right? So hard to deal with. And you need to bring truthfulness into the otherworldly, into the ethereal, but most people don't even have access to it. So how can they do that? For most people, it's just like, they don't even know what's happening during this time. Saturn going to the 12th, right? They're just going to be flooded, and with Neptune, flooded by images from, and by messages that they don't even know where they come from, right? But this could be nightmares. This could be psychic disruptions, nightmares, flash images that you don't absolutely have no clue where they're coming from, right? No clue. Like, what is this? You go to a psychologist. The psychologist cannot help you. They say, like, what? Unless if they know past life regression, and if they are spiritual, then they will understand. But if they're not spiritual, if they're just like a common, like a regular psychologist, they won't even be able to understand. Like, they go, oh, yeah, just do some cognitive behavioral therapy and don't think about it anymore. So that's all they're going to tell you. So, but now, what is your task? You have to actually resolve with Saturn, Neptune conjunct in your 12th. You don't get around this. You will need to develop spiritual discipline to access the higher dimensions. You will have to develop spiritual discipline if you want to do well, right, this year. You will have to develop spiritual discipline. You will have to meditate. You will have to work on accessing higher levels of consciousness. And you will have to gradually unlock that world, the ethereal, the otherworldly, right? So that you can understand what's going on. And you'll be like, okay, so this is the nightmare, what it means. So this is the flashes that are coming, what they mean, right? Okay, I can put myself into a soul contact with that energy or with that spirit, and I can close this chapter, or I can do whatever I have to do, forgive them, or, ask for forgiveness, or do a ritual, go a prayer, whatever it is that you have to do. But you will be able to start to deal with it, right? With those intruding, with those ethereal, difficult things, right? And hidden enemies, obviously. If you don't, even a physical manifestation could be hidden enemies, hidden roadblocks, hidden challenges, hidden deceptions. That's the worst. You don't even know. Somebody's doing something, but you don't even know, right, against you. But obviously, if you do develop that higher level access, and you develop surrender to the ethereal, surrender to the cosmos, to the great whole, right? To God, ultimately, right? If you develop that in yourself, in this, and avoid the temptation of escapism. It's going to be larger with the 12th house than any other, because you don't even know what's doing this. So it's going to be even larger than any others I'm just going to like switch off, take drugs, or escape into this, escape into that, right? So instead, if you actually stick with it and work on the spiritual discipline in the unseen fields, you can unlock extreme high levels of union with the divine in this year, in the 12th house, right? Extremely high levels of union with the universal consciousness, right? With Christ consciousness. You can develop that in this year. So this is basically what we're talking about. Each one of the 12 houses, right? I may have mentioned too much of the negatives, but each one of them, when you are able to master the challenges, to bring spiritual discipline into that domain that you're supposed to bring spiritual discipline into, then this year you will be able to unlock a really higher level of yourself. Because as I said, as I showed you before, Jupiter is coming back, towards the end of the year, we get all those positive activations. And then the Jupiter energy comes into this same constellation. And the spiritual mastery that you have worked for the first part of the year, in the second part of the year, is going to have immense fruits, right? So let's say it was in your 5th house, the Saturn-Neptune in your 5th house, and you went through all of that and you became really disciplined, with your investments and with your ego. You kept your ego in check, right? And then you will be able, towards the end of the year, to have massive creative success in your creative endeavors. So 5th house, right? Similar with all of the others. If it was your 7th house, you went through all of that with your partner, with your business partner, with others, right? And you became extremely disciplined, thorough, honest, real, truthful, and structured in your approach in the first part of the year, right? Through disciplined practice, really doing daily the hard work, sitting down, right? Doing the work, right? Whatever it is, the work that you need to do, the journaling, or, the therapy that you're going to do, or whatever it is, the meditation practice, the most important, sit down to meditate. Prayer, do your prayer, sit down to pray. Start your morning with the prayer. Start the day with a prayer, right? That's the most important one. Forget about everything else. Like, start there, and then you can do everything else, right? So if you do that, right? If it was in the 7th house, I said, you're going to unlock this extremely high levels of very, very fulfilling business partnerships, or very, very fulfilling personal partnerships, right? Extremely fulfilling and extremely solid partnerships in the latter part of the year, right? Again, 1 and 1 and 1. If it's in the 1st house, right? If it's in the 1st house, it's all of these practices you do around your self-image, around who you are, and you're going to change yourself. And if you do them diligently, then you unlock all of this for you, who you are. You're going to be seen towards the end of the year as a completely new person, a higher person, authority. You will become an authority this year, right? A real spiritual authority. So all of this I'm saying, why? Because there is a constant theme. The constant theme, I think I've said it so many times, we hammered it home now, and and you will be able to work with this. Now, if you want to go even deeper and look at your own chart and see how your own chart is activated everywhere, because we don't have just this one constellation. We have asteroids and lots of minute details, and everybody gets triggered in different ways. If you want to look far deeper into your own chart, we can do this. You can work with me, and I have currently a special offer that I'm sharing with the community, which is that if you get a forecast, a strategic one-on-one forecast, one-on-one consultation for 2025, where we go through all of your activations, we look at how to do your personal, financial, and spiritual growth in an optimized fashion, how to work on that well. Then, in addition to this, you're going to get access as well to a completely new, brand new technology, which is a ASCENSION Report. The ASCENSION Report that brings together Western astrology, Chinese astrology, numerology, all of that in a report that you get access to, completely unique. If you want to do that, you can see the link in ultrasapient.xyz/master2025. That's the link. They're going to be below as well. You can go and check it out. This is a limited time offer. It's only available until January 12th. Now, with that being said, let me know in the comments what you're expecting for this year. I'd love to hear from you what you're expecting for this year, if where the constellation falls in your chart, how you see that play out for yourself, how you feel about what I just said. If you feel you're ready, if you have questions, if you want to share with others that have the similar constellation, right? If you want to share your expectations, your hopes around this, or how you see this play out, how it resonates with you, Please share in the comments because we want to create a community here, and your comments are very, very much appreciated and very, very welcome. And I will leave you with this. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to this channel as well, and be well, be blessed. Let this be a great year for us, and let us all work on developing ourselves, developing that inner discipline, that spiritual discipline, to make this a beautiful and empowering 2025 for all of us. Be blessed.